one of the kind of interesting things about design strategy and the design thinking philosophy is that you don't sort of conceive an idea in a vacuum. You conceive an idea with your ultimate end customer. So you, in a sense, kind of reverse engineer into it based on the needs of the market.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging cities across our nation. I'm super excited because I am here with my co-host, Miss Leanne Buchanan.
Hello, everybody.
And we have a very special guest today, Tony Jimenez. Welcome.
Hey guys, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tony, we're excited to have this conversation, and I think like most people that we've been speaking to lately, probably well overdue. You've really got a great reputation in Miami, doing amazing things, but I'm excited to get to know who you are because I know your other half really, really well. So, Tony, let's table for a moment what you do in terms of your title and your jobs, and talk a little bit about who you are. So, why don't you start off by telling us what your superpower is?
Wow, my superpower. So I'd say my superpower is probably people, connecting people, meeting people, understanding people. And my entire career, there's been one common thread, and that's empowerment and how do I help others. So I'd say helping others is probably my superpower.
And helping others is something that is sometimes really deep and ingrained. But where do you think that came from, that sense of empowerment, the desire to really connect people and help other folks?
I think I was just fortunate to grow up in a household and a family that kind of instilled those values in me, and definitely owe that to my parents. We came, I'm Cuban background. My parents immigrated here with their families, fleeing communism, and like most other stories in Miami, it's an immigrant story, and growing up with basically nothing and having to build it up all for yourself. So having that instilled to know that there were other people there to help us along the way, and thinking about that and not forgetting about that, and make sure that you're going to give back and help others that might need that in their current state.
So you have a very diverse set of experiences. On one side, you are in the venture investment space, but on the other side, you're also founder of a plant-based food product company. So talk to us about how that all came to be and what got you to where you are.
Sure. So that's right. So I'm a co-founder of a company called JOI. That's JOI, and JOI stands for Just One Ingredient. The way that came to be, I've always kind of been very sort of passionate about health and wellness for, at a personal level. And I was one of these weird people in Miami that made his own almond milks at home for, well over a decade. And when friends would come over and kind of see what I was doing, they'd be like, what are you doing? So it wasn't commonplace, at least in Miami, to kind of do that. And that kind of just, part of my daily lifestyle. I'm fully vegan, plant-based. And about 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to do an MBA program, but it's a really sort of quirky MBA program out in San Francisco. And I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs and kind of the innovation of Apple. And he basically, for all his major sort of innovative breakthroughs, hired a consultancy that was basically based around design thinking. Mm-hmm. And this consultancy, which is IDEO, actually conceived my MBA program that I decided to go to, which is called Design Strategy MBA in California College of the Arts in San Francisco. And there I met my other co-founders, and we kind of coalesced around a couple of common passions, and that's a plant-based lifestyle, health and wellness, sustainability. and essentially trying to find a more sort of holistic, sustainable solution to the plant-based milk industry. And sort of with my sort of personal journey around developing homemade almond milks, we kind of came together around these shared passions and started working on an idea.
So is the one ingredient almonds, or?
Yeah, so right now we have a line of what we call nut bases. So we developed essentially what is a concentrate. So right now in the market, if you were to go to Whole Foods or any grocery store and you find yourself in the milk section, there's a whole sort of wall of boxed plant-based milks. These are essentially, sorry to burst you guys' bubble, but water-flavored beverages, usually riddled with sugars, additives, preservatives. Basically, just it's designed to live on a shelf. So one of the big reasons why I made it at home is because one, it tastes wildly different. It's like almost comparing whole milk to skim milk, and two, it's nutritionally much more dense if you make it at home. So that said, basically the market is only kind of providing one option, with the exception if you make it at home. So we wanted to find a solution for, one, providing greater accessibility, empowering customers to access greater nutrition, better tasting, but also making it convenient and higher accessibility for them to choose it.
So what's been your greatest challenge up to this point?
Our greatest challenge is that I guess we created something that is so unique, didn't really exist in the marketplace, because again, we're not selling milk, we're selling a concentrate. So there's an educational process around that, because essentially it's kind of like a paste, like kind of in a tahini format. So when the eye sees our product, a customer sees our product, they can't naturally tell like, oh, I know what to do with this. There has to be an educational sort of story around it. And once they hear, they see the story, then they understand, wow, this is really powerful. So when we created this, to kind of get into the story, we spent about 3 years kind of in R&D on how to figure out what product we were going to put out. And initially the idea was actually we were going to kind of create the Keurig or Nespresso machine of plant-based milks. So again, thinking about greater accessibility, empowering customers, creating greater access to health, we wanted to kind of eliminate, because when you make homemade almond milk, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Like you have to soak nuts overnight. You need a high-powered blender. You have to, basically filter them through some sort of cheesecloth or nut bag. And then at the end of the day, when you kind of go through that whole process, there's about 40 to 50% waste of almond meal or cashew, whatever that gets left over. That actually gets discarded and is wasteful. And then that milk only lasts you about 3 to 4 days. So we wanted to find a solution to all this. And so the idea was like, let's do a piece of hardware, basically, a Keurig type concept. And so we spent about 3 years doing that. And that involved everything. Like at one point we hired an engineering team in India, and we're like, they had never made almond milk in their lives. And we're kind of explained it to them, like, this is what we want to do. And, 3 months later, they're like, hey, we did it, let's hop on a Zoom so you guys can see. Next thing we know, they're showing us a video of this like 4 foot by 4 foot, like refrigerator looking thing. It weighs 750 pounds, made out of steel. And we're like, oh my God, we just wasted so much money and so much time. But that said, I mean, eventually we actually were able and achieved kind of like that envisioned prototype. But the moment that we did, we essentially said, wow, this is great. But, essentially what we just did, or what we just engineered, is a single purpose water blender. And everybody has a household, everybody has a blender in their kitchens at home. So, why are we going to get in this business if that's not the purpose? So when we kind of took a step back and looked at what we had created, we realized that the true innovation and kind of our aha moment was the food product that we were going to stick in the pod to put into the device. And so when we looked around the marketplace and we realized, wow, this doesn't exist. So we said, you know what, let's eliminate this hardware idea and let's just focus 100% on the food product. And so, this was our first big pivot. And And so we went hard into the food product and simplified the business as much as possible, but realized we had something really powerful on our hands.
I want to dig into the insights from this process of getting from this big idea and then really iterating and getting down to something simple.
Sure.
Like the one thing that you just one ingredient, really.
Yeah.
So what is something that you learned about yourself, about your co-founders through that process of just getting to the final product?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Essentially, again, we met at this MBA program, and I decided on this program because I didn't want to just go to a traditional MBA, and everybody tells you like you don't learn anything in an MBA. You just you basically inherit a network. And I wasn't interested in the network. I was interested in actually learning a technical process, and we were able to learn this in this program. So one of the kind of interesting things about design strategy and the design thinking philosophy is that you don't sort of conceive an idea in a vacuum. You conceive an idea with your ultimate end customer. So you, in a sense, kind of reverse engineer into it based on the needs of the market. So essentially how we arrived at this process was really just diving deep into what are the pain points and how is the end customer going to use this, and kind of involved our end customer into the design process, both of the product and of the business model. And I think one of my favorite quotes is, and I'm going to butcher the hell out of it, but it's Oliver Wendell Holmes. He says something about there's genius in finding simplicity. There's basically simplicity on the other side of complexity, something to that effect. And it's true. It's like if you can kind of overcome all the complexity, there's always a very simple solution at the end of the day. And look at any of the great sort of innovative companies. It's just it looks really simple, but the amount of work that went into making that so simple is like insane. So we're always trying to figure out, and by the way, it's a constant battle. It's a daily battle. We're always challenging ourselves and trying to figure out, how do we simplify the process? How do we make this more convenient? How do we make this better? How do we improve it? And that's just something that you kind of just like constantly have to challenge yourself on.
Was this your first venture as an entrepreneur?
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
No.
Talk to us about the prior ones.
So again, we started out about empowerment, and kind of that's what really drives me. And my first true venture was fueled by kind of reconnection to my heritage and my background, which is my parents are from Cuba, and essentially we kind of grew up in Miami thinking about, this whole notion of traveling back to Cuba was kind of taboo. And, the old guard, our parents and previous generations were very much against anyone going back to Cuba because it's essentially, you're propping up the regime and giving them money. So that said, when I got to college, I was like, I've been hearing about Cuba my whole life, but I don't know what it's like to be in the shoes of somebody my age in Cuba right now today, and what kind of daily struggles they go through. So when I got to college, started meeting other sort of like-minded friends, and they're like, yeah, no, we need to do something. We need to like kind of discover this. And like many people do in college, they're, trying to discover their roots. So we actually created it started out as a national network, which grew into an international network, and it's called Roots of Hope. And Roots of Hope mission was to empower youth in Cuba to be the authors of their own story. So, with that, we essentially channeled our efforts into Cuba and empowering youth on the island through music, through technology, and through entrepreneurship. And I started that when I was 18, 19 with a group of friends. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's it involved everything from it was a nonprofit, so we had to raise money. We had to do community organizing around the country, organizing inside of Cuba, and then all the challenges that come with dealing with a system that's a communist regime. So that brought along its own challenges.
And Roots of Hope is still going strong.
Yeah, it's still going strong. We support essentially one of the most notable independent journalists on the island. Her name is Joanny Sanchez. So we support her and all her efforts in her publications called 14 y Medio. And she basically has become a source of the only source of independent information for Cubans in the island and outside of the island as well.
Wow. Good stuff. When we think about Roots of Hope, joy, empowerment, what's the next 5 years, 10, what's the vision?
The vision for what or who?
For you. Like, where is all this headed? What's the world look like when you've accomplished?
Sure. So, I think with Joy, Leanne alluded to, I'm also involved in the investment world. And, when I started working on this project, I realized that, it was my personal world and my professional world kind of converging. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see that as my perfect sort of sweet spot where I can, again, continue empowering other entrepreneurs, potentially as an investor, but also empowering my friends, my family, the market at large, to empower them with a healthier lifestyle and looking into innovations across plant-based food and beverage technology.
I love it. I love it. You know what time it is?
Yes, I was just wondering. I was like, oh, we're at that point. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure.
So these are quick, but they go deep.
Okay.
So where have you found peace?
My family.
What is one of the kindest things someone has ever done for you?
Oof. I just went through COVID really bad. I was hospitalized, and I was taken care of by a staff that I probably will never meet again. They were covered from head to toe, and if they stand in front of me and on a sidewalk one day, I'll probably never know who they are. So I'm extremely grateful to them because it was a really scary moment in my life, and I didn't know if I was going to see my family again, and so I'm really grateful to them.
Mm-hmm. What have you witnessed that has strengthened your faith in humanity?
Wow. I guess a lot. I'm an optimist, so I see it in everyday life. Random acts of kindness by strangers to people doing incredible things for the world that they don't need to be doing it. So I like to think I see it everywhere and every day as much as I can.
How do you show love to others?
Being kind, thoughtful, listen. Absolutely.
All right. Last question. You ready?
Yeah.
What is a defining moment in your life, and how did it impact you?
There could be a few. I'd say I'll go with about 3 years ago. I had a doctor's visit, and he basically said, "Hey, you're pre-diabetic. I have to start you on statins for high cholesterol, and you have high blood pressure. And I have awful cardiovascular disease history on both my parents' side. My dad has had 2 heart attacks. My mom has a pacemaker and implanted, so on. And as you go down, it's just like men in my family rarely get past the age of 50. So it was like, and this happened to me when I was 35, and I quickly realized, I'm messing around, and I know my history. I know what I need to do. And so I basically decided to go fully plant-based and become vegan. And it was transformative for me and for my family. Now my wife is as well, my in-laws. And it was crazy. It was something that was, specific to me, but I started to see the impact that it had on other people's lives. And, I'm really grateful that I made that choice.
Tony, this has been a wonderful conversation. How can people connect with you, with the company, with the nonprofit?
Sure. So I guess with our company, we're most active on Instagram. You can find us at AddJoi, AddJoi. Me personally, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's really the only kind of active social media I have. Roots of Hope is our nonprofit, so rootsofhope.org.
Well, thank you, Tony, for being open and really getting into what was a fascinating conversation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die.